The cowboy who found a mother offering her starving children. The Texas sun beat mercilessly on the open plain, turning the earth into cracked clay and the air into a shimmering haze. Miles of dust stretched in every direction, broken only by patches of stubborn mesquite and lonely cedar trees. It was the kind of summer that made cattle thin and men older than their years. Ethan Hartley, a cowboy known across the county for his solitude, nudged his horse along a narrow trail. He was a tall man with weathered skin, shoulders hardened by work, and a gaze as sharp as an eagle's. Folks in town called him the Quiet One, not because he was unfriendly, but because silence had been his closest companion since the day he buried his wife 3 years ago. His ranch was wide, his herd decent, but his house was empty. That day, he wasn't expecting to find anyone on his land, least of all a woman on her knees with 2 children clinging to her. At first, he thought his eyes deceived him. The heat often played tricks. But as he drew closer, the sight became clear: a young mother, her dress ragged and dusty, hair tangled with sweat and wind. Her cheeks were hollow, her lips cracked. Beside her stood a boy of about 7, his small hand gripping hers, and a girl no older than 4, her legs trembling from weakness. Ethan pulled on the reins, his horse snorting as it slowed. His shadow fell over them, and the woman lifted her face to him. Her eyes, storm-gray, sunken but fierce, met his. "Please," her voice broke, but she forced the words out. "Take my children. They haven't eaten in 3 days." The boy tightened his hold on her hand, shaking his head violently. "No, Mama, no." The cowboy's stomach twisted. He swung down from his horse, his boots crunching against the dry earth. "Ma'am, what are you sayin'?" Tears streaked through the dust on her cheeks. "They're wasting away. I've got nothing left to give them. No food, no water, no kinfolk left to help. If you take them, maybe they'll live." The little girl whimpered, hiding her face in her mother's dress. The boy glared at Ethan, as if daring him to refuse. Ethan's jaw clenched. He wasn't a man easily rattled, but this desperation, cut straight through the armor he had built around himself. He knelt down, his shadow stretching long over the children. "What's your name, son?" he asked quietly. The boy swallowed hard. "Caleb. And this is Anna." Ethan turned to the mother. "And yours?" "Lydia," she whispered, as though ashamed of still having a name when hunger had taken everything else. Ethan straightened, rubbing a hand over his chin. He had a choice: ride on, leave them to fate, or do something that would change his life forever. The answer came before he could argue with himself. "You're all comin' with me," he said firmly. Lydia blinked, confusion breaking through her despair. "But I said take them. Not me." Ethan's voice turned hard. "You think I'd leave their mama to die on the side of the trail? Not a chance. My house ain't much, but it's got a roof, food, and water. You'll stay there until you find your feet." Her lips trembled. "Why would you help strangers?" He met her gaze steadily. "Because I buried my wife and unborn child not long ago. I couldn't save them. But I can save you." For a long moment, Lydia stared at him, as though weighing whether this was mercy or some cruel trick. Then her body sagged, exhaustion stealing the fight from her. She let him help her up. Ethan lifted Anna into the saddle first, then Caleb, then Lydia. He led the horse by the reins, walking beside them all the way back to his ranch. His home stood plain but sturdy, a wide porch and 2 rooms warmed by a stone hearth. Inside, the air smelled of cedar smoke and bread from the last loaf he'd baked. It wasn't much, but to Lydia it felt like heaven. Ethan set food on the table: beans, bread, smoked beef jerky. Caleb ate quickly, but not without tearing pieces off to feed his sister. Lydia tried to refuse her portion, pushing it toward the children, but Ethan's firm voice stopped her. "You'll eat," he said, "else you won't have the strength to care for him." She obeyed, though tears slid silently down her face with every bite. That night, the children slept curled together on a quilt near the fire. Lydia sat in the rocking chair, her hands trembling as she watched them. Ethan sat across from her, silent for a long while before he spoke. "You don't have to explain yourself tonight. Rest first. Tomorrow we'll talk." Lydia's throat ached with unspoken words, but her body was too weak to argue. She simply nodded, eyes heavy with sleep. The days that followed changed everything. At first, Lydia moved through the house like a shadow, ashamed of her dependence. She mended torn shirts, swept the floor, and cooked what little she could to repay the cowboy's kindness. Ethan never asked for repayment. He simply worked the ranch, letting her find her own rhythm. The children, though, wasted no time. Caleb followed Ethan like a pup, eager to learn. He watched him fix fences, saddle horses, and chop wood. One morning, Ethan handed him a small axe and guided his hands. "Don't need strength. Just need aim." Caleb's proud grin when he split his first log made Ethan's chest ache in a way he hadn't felt in years. Anna, meanwhile, became Ethan's shadow. She perched on his lap as he sharpened tools, chattered while he brushed his horse, and left wildflowers in his boots. Her laughter filled corners of the house that had been silent too long. And Lydia, she began to soften. The hollowness left her cheeks, her eyes grew brighter, and she even smiled when she caught Ethan teaching Caleb how to whistle. One evening, as she stirred a pot of stew, she looked at him and whispered, "You saved us." Ethan shook his head. "No, ma'am. You saved yourself, walkin' all this way. I just gave you a place to stop." Her eyes glistened, but she said nothing more. Weeks passed. The prairie greened after a rare rain, and with it, hope grew in the hearts of all who lived in that house. The children were stronger, laughter was common, and Lydia carried herself with quiet pride. One night, after the children had fallen asleep, Lydia lingered by the fire. Ethan sat across from her, mending a saddle strap. The silence between them was warm, not heavy. Finally, she spoke. "I was ready to die that day. Truly. I thought the best I could do was give Caleb and Anna a chance with someone else. I never expected—" her voice broke. "This." Ethan looked at her, his eyes steady. "You thought you were losing everything. Truth is, maybe you were being led here." Lydia's breath caught. "Led to you." He set aside the strap, leaning forward. "I ain't no preacher, but I believe God don't waste a pain like yours, or mine. Maybe He brought us together for a reason." Tears slipped down Lydia's cheeks, but for the first time, they were not only tears of sorrow. She reached across the table, her hand trembling as it found his. Ethan's rough hand closed over hers, gentle but sure. In that touch, a silent vow was made, not of pity, but of partnership. Not of charity, but of love slowly being born. By autumn, no one in town called Ethan the quiet one anymore. They called him the man with a family. Caleb raced through the fields, strong and sturdy. Anna's laughter echoed from the barn. And Lydia walked at Ethan's side, her eyes no longer hollow but filled with light. The cowboy who had once lived with silence now lived with laughter, hope, and love. And the mother who once begged a stranger to take her starving children had found, instead, a man who gave them all a home.